Hello. Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. And I'm just looking out the window and it's looking pretty gray, except for a few shafts of light shining on my nice yellow tree out front, which is nice. Yeah. And how is everyone coping with well, at least if you're in Canada, right? Dealing with the time change. I was very grateful to have an extra hour uh, because on uh, on Sunday yesterday I was doing a workshop and I was sort of madly preparing, so I was up a little later than planned, and then I got to dial the clock back before I went to bed, so that was pretty great. Um, but so short term gain, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of winter in terms of, I mean, the cold, yes, but the light, especially like watching the days getting shorter now, it's, you know, I could probably deal with the cold if I, well, if I had to. I have to. I live here. But yeah, if I could make sure I got a decent amount of light through the winter, that would make a big difference, right? Hello, Annie. How are you? How are you doing? How is your pooch and your front? I guess your front garden is winding down, but I hope you're doing well. And did you have something symbolic in mind to play with? Obviously, if the visual I made for the this is the collage I did for the I keep forgetting the name of it. The YouTube thumbnail. That's what it's called, Cat. Get with it. Um, I did a lot of like graphic type of things that were not logos per se. Like I tried to steer away from corporate things, but they had a sort of simplified impact. Um, but so many things can be symbolic, right? People, plants, um, animals, so many things in our experience are symbols. And I think artists really benefit from being able to know what things are symbolic of what, and how they can use them. And they're also so context dependent too, right? Like I know, not that I've studied it, but I've learned that like in Victorian times, um, practically every flower had like a meaning. That so if you gave someone this flower, it meant one thing. If you gave them that flower, it meant another thing. If you showed them in this way, if you had them in your house in that way. um, and I just, you know that's beautiful and cool and interesting, and especially if you're going to do work about that period, and that it would be a really interesting sort of deep dive. um, but sort of keeping track of all the different veins in which symbols apply is really, um, unless you're like a scholar and that's what you're making your life's work about. Yeah, it can be a lot, but knowing symbols in areas that you're interested in, especially as an artist, can be really useful. Um, so Annie says, more tired from time change than expected. Yeah, it takes me at least a week to, and sometimes more. Like I I needed to go to bed early last night. I then I was waking up early, so yeah. Um, yeah, Pup's routine is tough to change, right? Yes, right. He or she doesn't doesn't know that things have suddenly changed. Why is dinner so much later now? Or earlier? I now, yeah, I can't earlier. Yeah, yeah, later. Right. Um, and And he says, going to catch up on some watercolor painting, sketch prompts. Awesome, awesome. Annie, did you do Inktober this year? Or is are you, it sounds like your watercolor painting, you've got some something else cooking, given that there are some prompts. And hello, Q Cubiquity. I don't think I recognize you. Have you? Is this your first time here? If you are, that's awesome. Welcome. Um, Great to have you along. How did you find us? Or am I just not recognizing your handle and you're someone I know? That's also quite possible given me. Um, okay, all right. Hello, Kathleen. I saw you fleetingly yesterday because I was teaching at Nielsen, and between John Leonard's workshop and the collage group having their opening, it was like I won't get my workshop taught because there's so many people I want to say hi to and hug, and so I'm sorry I missed you. I did see you out of the corner of my eye passing, but wow, there were just so many of my um, of the old guard, right? It was awesome. Yeah. Annie says she has 3 prompts going, including Inktober, right? Yeah, so you can juggle your prompts, right? Da, 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 la, la, da, da, da. And Kathleen, did you have work in the show? Were you there for John Leonard? Yes to both, or either? I'm sure you were. Well, I'm pretty sure you'd be there for John's thing, but I I didn't realize that the opening yesterday at Nielsen was not an opening, that it was like a closing. So I said, when's your opening run to? And someone said, 1 till 3. And I thought, oh, that's when my workshop ends. But what I'll do is I'll go look at the show afterwards. And so I went out, and like only a couple of people's work was still left there. So um, yeah. Um, Annie, my portrait collage course, no, because that I'm teaching through Nielsen. So you have to sort of sign up for it at Nielsen. Now, I don't know, they don't think they offer any kind of a discount, and we're sort of halfway through that course, I think. Um, so if you signed up for it, and you'd have to pay full price, you could join us for the rest of them, and which I think actually it's more than halfway through. I think there might be only 2 classes left out of 6, but then you would at least get the recordings, because I do give the recordings links to the people who took the course. So, but it's also being Nielsen, I don't support it with an online group, so it has some cons that way. But if you're still really interested, then you could definitely contact Julia, who's yeah, responsible is the word I'm trying to get out, for programs at Nielsen. Um, 4 pieces in the show. Way to go, Kathleen. I wish I had seen them. So yeah, that's and are you finding yourself more and more of a collage artist now? It seems that way, Kathleen. So that's awesome. I love it when that happens. So um, so I'm going to switch to my overhead, and I think that what I'm going to do with is because I cut these guys out, um, I have all the negatives left, and I was just about to sort of sweep them into the garbage, and just thought, oh, maybe I'll do something fun with the negative pieces that are left over. I don't know whether it'll be able to do something, but I thought maybe combine it with some fashion imagery. I don't even know where that's going, but I'm going to find out. So, um, painting and collage, more collage at the moment. I suppose I won't mind if you do some painting, Kathleen. Just don't make a habit of it. No, of course, they play really nicely together, right? So, yeah, no, I'm just, I'm teasing, right? So, all right, I'm going to switch to the overhead camera, and it looks like my camera is having trouble focusing again. Come on, heaven's sakes, it's going to be like that too when it's overhead. Anyway, time for a new webcam, I think. Go on black for a minute, and I'll switch to the overhead. So back in a moment. Do not adjust your set. And I'll need a minute to get it sort of aligned here. That's not too bad, actually. Maybe slightly crooked. I'm bending it the wrong way. There we go. Good enough. Close enough for rock and roll. So when I came in this morning, I saw my pile of detritus, right? This stuff here, and I thought, actually, that looks really interesting. So the camera is like, this is actually fluorescent yellow. The camera's not really there. That's better. It's because I have my my window open, like not open to the air, but blind up. And I hope you don't mind, because I just need that daylight today. So I am just gonna play and see what happens. I think there's something that it's interesting when you play with graphic things and photographic things. That's one of my happy places. So I'm going to see where that goes. So for whatever reason, I like to start with black more often than not, and maybe just because I do, maybe I should think twice about that. So what I'll do then is I'll look for a couple of images that would be interesting to play with, and then see what color strikes me that might be an interesting background considering all these neons, and then we'll go from there. Oh, I kind of love the fact that she's facing one way and he's facing another, and so I think there's something interesting about that. So that's one option, and I'll have to think about whether I want a bigger surface. I also really I like this shot. It's got this horizontal blur to it, and which is really interesting. Like it's remarkable that it like still holds the features really well. I think probably they exposed it like that for a certain amount of time, so that locked in, and then moved the camera as it was still open, so that you get these sort of streaks away from the highlights, so you can see but this side doesn't have it. So that's pretty cool. I don't know whether that's what I want for this. These are all left over from a sort of long short list that I had picked of images I thought were fun for another project for the abstract portraiture class you were mentioning, Annie, to be more specific. Oh, and like, wouldn't this be interesting? Like, she's holding this apple, and I've got a few negative of round things, because quite a few of the symbols were round, so there might be something there too. All right, that's an option. All right, I think this will get used another day. I love this insane, like spaghetti, colored spaghetti wig, but maybe not for this. All right, let's see what that leaves me with. Either her or these two guys, and I might make more than one piece, but I'm going to hold her as my second, and I'm just looking for my my bigger pad, which I'm not seeing off the top of my head here. Aha, perfect. All right, and that's kind of cool too, that line of type. I will probably mess with it, but yeah, it looks like it actually carried on from something else on the previous page because it's sort of mid-thought, but that's fine. All right, I'm gonna get this party started, and I'll decide a little later what's going to go behind them, and I'll just get going. I thought I had another knife. There it is. That's the one I want. So you guys, like I was just thinking about the fact that I was looking for my knife, and if you guys had to do your collages with knife or scissors, but not both, which would you choose? I would absolutely choose knife. I mean, I'm glad I don't have to choose because sometimes scissors are just the ticket. But I remember being at a gallery opening of a collage artist. I can't remember her last name, Jennifer, but she's a Toronto artist, and she was there. So I said, "So, are you cutting these out with like a knife or whatever?" And she said, "Oh no, never. No, I only use scissors." And I said, "I pretty much only use knife." And she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." And I was looking at the fine, like what the things she was cutting out, and said, "How can you even do that with scissors?" And she was like, "How could you ever do that with a knife?" So I found that so interesting. So let us know in the comments which, if you're on your collage desert island, which tool would you prefer? Interesting. It shows me how infrequently I work with images of males, because I'm like, this is interesting. This hair, like, should I tear the hairline because it's kind of fuzzy? And then it's like, where'd all the fur on his face come from, right? So it's pretty funny. So Kim and I were visiting her mom, and her mom lives in a condo, and they have a nice rooftop garden. So we had a barbecue up there. This was when the weather was warmer, and they have like some outdoor furniture, and there are a bunch of young men hanging out talking, and they were wearing like shorts and t-shirts as you'd expect. And I after we passed them, I said to Kim, so many hairy legs in one place, and she looked at me and laughed, and I said, yeah, things have changed. This guy also has very very noticeable eyelashes. Remarkable. I I used to have some eyelashes before when I was younger too. So doesn't seem right that you should lose eyelashes as you get older. That doesn't make any sense. I'll check in with your comments in a few minutes. I'm just gonna get this underway first, and so I'm gonna start with this, cutting this guy out because I'm starting with him first because his entire silhouette was findable, whereas with her, like the darkness of her hair and the back of her body is like just blowing into the background. So I thought maybe overlapping them like this might be interesting. Yeah, and I should mess with them a bit more too. So that's interesting, and exactly how, I'm not sure yet. But there is something interesting about them looking. Well, I mean, he's looking at us, but he's facing that way more, and she's definitely more or less in profile. So we've got a bit of a cubist thing going on, and what's under here? It's like her arm, and she's got a necklace on. So I'm wondering about like maybe taking the shadow areas out of his, or maybe it should be the highlight areas so that you can see her hand. Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? So let's give that a whirl. Sorry, I'm doing that thing where I stop talking again because I'm thinking, but I know it's not helpful. So and I guess I'm not really thinking hard or anything. I'm just looking at my cuts. So so I should be able to manage that at least. Sort of deciding where the light shifts enough to dark to make a cut is very subjective. That's the word I'm looking for. And that's fine. That's kind of part of what being an artist is about, is making those decisions, right? So it just ends up looking like this weird sawtooth thing. But it's always cool to notice things. Like now that I see these edges, and we can see that she's got like some kind of jewelry that's flower shaped, and it's a similar color. There's an interesting connection there, so that's kind of fun. And then I was thinking tucking the other side of him behind her might be interesting too, except finding the edges. Well, I can make some of her hair up. I can see a little bit of it, and I can make some of it up. And then we'll go from there and see whether it works. It might not, but it might be interesting, right? Like these two people sort of overlapping in unusual ways. She's got some kind of a sleeve on here that's so out of focus it's hard to know what's going on. So I'm going to make an arbitrary decision. Now, let's see. Yeah, that is interesting. Do I want this to be further down? I guess one question I have to decide is it do I want to take advantage of that type at all, what it says? So it obviously says something else on the previous page, but what we do have is then being mocked or shunned is being honored and celebrated, and rightfully so. So is that something I want to harness or show maybe minimize, cover, remove? So just the fragment that says being honored and celebrated and rightfully so is kind of interesting. And so maybe, all right, so let's try something here. And that is the idea of like cutting so that that can be brought in front. And stuff could be tucked under it. So something that I'll do sometimes when I'm trying to figure out this is like, I haven't cut out this piece entirely yet, because if I just have the cut that goes down the side, it allows me to tuck something in and test it. And if I decide, oh, I'm not going to do that, I could just glue this all down, and yeah, you'd see the cut, but it wouldn't really be that distracting. And so it's kind of like a try before you buy option. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, so how are the symbols going to fit into this, Kat? I haven't got an answer for you yet. So we'll see. Oh, okay. I just had another thought. And that was, okay, this is, I'm just going to do this because all right, so hopefully what I'm doing will soon become apparent. So we'll see. All right, so I think we need a little white there. So I've cut around, well, I'd already cut around him, but I cut the black background out so we get a little glimpse of the white background. And then I didn't know where her back was, so I just used his chest t-shirt as a sort of template. So it's got I mean, it's not that big a deal, so you may not even pick up on that, but I just thought I'll just use that. That might be interesting. And the fact that this type is coming in front of him and this white gap sort of keeps it visible there. His silhouette is, I think, important. That could be another color or something underneath, but if it's black, it doesn't show the arc of this type so much. So so I can move that right up there if I wanted to, because then it kind of, you really feel the way it's like just disconnected. Or I could offset it more like that. You still feel it, but maybe less so. I kind of like the way you feel it more up here. So so I'm starting to get so many loose pieces that I'm going to have to do just a little bit of taping to hold things in place somewhat. Yeah. All right. Well, while I think about that, the thing I'm looking at is how I'd like to see just a little bit more of her. So what do I do? Do I just cut his head so that we can see more of hers? Do I cut along the hairline? Do I just take out the ear? So I'm not sure what happens there. So while I pause on or speculate, neither of those words are what I'm thinking. Ponder. Let that work in the back burner. I'm going to go check your comments and see what you're saying. Kathleen says need both knife and scissors, right? Okay. Philip, hello. How are you? Sorry, you probably said hello like eons ago, and I've had my head down. Nice to have you along. Nice to have you back. Annie says knife, but it would go slower as I have to be more careful not to overcut. Right. And Philippa says she loves scissors from an early age. Yeah. In Asia, they give like 3-year-olds sharp scissors, and they start doing paper craft from, here people would be like, no, give them the blunt ones. And they're going to cut themselves somewhere along the way. Right. I think, I think it's so great. You can do remarkable things when you're remarkably young if you have the support. Um, so yeah, I I totally get the scissor thing. I think a bunch of the reason I am more knife oriented comes from my graphic arts background, because um, there were a bunch of things that for preparing visuals more more before the digital age, but like cutting what was called rubylith, um, and some other things like collage was often something you would do, not necessarily like this, but cut and paste to make layouts, to make mock-ups of whatever your design might be. Cutting was an important part of it, and I like the fact that a knife is like this, can be very much like a drawing tool. It's not the same, but I can hold it that way, or I can. It seems very similar to a drawing tool for me. So I think that's why the knife for me. Okay, let's see what if I do I do promise you that that those symbols are going to come in somewhere. I just keep having interesting ideas as far as what could happen here. So bear with me. Oh, but he was taller than that, wasn't he? Right. It might work. I might need to cut it a little further. So this is the kind of thing that I sometimes get myself wrapped up in, is tricky layering. And when it comes time to glue this baby, oh man, it's going to be tricky. Let's just put it that way. But maybe he should slip down a little further, although then what if that block actually started over here? That might buy me enough room to back him up a little bit more. And Philippa, are you thinking of playing with some sort of symbol, or are you working on symbol or symbols, or are you working on a different project, or just chilling out? All things are good. Nothing is wrong with any option. So, but let us know. Um, Okay, so I originally wasn't going to have them lower like this, but there's something about I originally was trying to have that go under his mouth, but maybe going over it is more interesting. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out my positioning and do a couple of temporary holds so that I'm not having to do everything, like keep the relationships completely well, this is a quite possibly the relationship I want. Try and get this sentence off the ground. So I am going to commit to some tape, which means it will hold it the way I want it while I think about other aspects. So and I'll do now this. That's interesting because I've shifted him a lot further down now. So, all right, what if just cut along her hand a little more and put that. That might be interesting, or it might not be. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm definitely finding finding this interweaving of things to be interesting. So I think I'm going to have to start getting some of the symbols and the negatives, the symbol and the leftovers that I've got here, into play, and then I'll start thinking about what else. So. I still have this negative that from him, which is kind of cool. And I have all these like super zingy shots of the colors I cut the symbols out of. So like, and I grabbed the pink because of the pink type. So that might be interesting. I am wondering about so remember how I said that I would probably not use this part of the type and just keep that. So I'm thinking if I cut along her silhouette, then I could put the pink behind her and like put the pink in this area. And that might be a nice tie-in to the pink over here. It might be too strong, but it might be good. So before I get to that, I'm going to try some of my symbol negatives, but I'm just going to throw something dark back here, probably too dark, because I think that white is important. So if it's lighter, orange or yeah, something like this would be, that's pretty zingy. Maybe slightly too zingy. I also had an orange somewhere, didn't I? Yeah. No, red. There's the orange. All the different layers at the back are catching on each other. All right, so that's kind of cool. And where this is coming from, not that yellow like that and orange like that are in their complexion, but they're not hugely different. So they're maybe closer than cool colors, obviously, or red, or lemon yellow. So, and then I've just noticed there's kind of some nice alignments on my piece of paper. So I'm going to tape those down temporarily as well. Like this one just sort of jogs to the top and side. And then this one, this conglomerate I've made jogs to the bottom, which you can't see. Sorry, I should have, it's too big for this camera. Jogs to the bottom. And then I've aligned this piece here with the top of that. And that I think is just a nice little setup. So it may change, of course. That's why I'm using tape, not glue yet. But good enough that I think it'll be interesting to play with. So and since I'm using these sort of solid colors that that relate to the symbol stuff, then I think it should talk nicely with, it should have a nice dialogue. Okay, so one thing is like, where should this get positioned? Does it make more sense further one way or the other? Sort of sliding along. All right, so that may change, but I feel like because he's looking at us more more directly and he's in front of her more than, and so on, then I'm going to put him off to that side, which sort of brings her a bit closer to the center, which doesn't completely address the disparity of who's got as much coverage, but I think it sort of does a little bit. And that may or may not be a final, but that's why I'm choosing that right now. That said, I'm going to put it back to more or less center. So I've got a sort of similar weightings of these two and just see whether yeah, I think there's going to be something here. So these are sort of gut thoughts and responses, and that's why I'm doing them with tape, because sometimes I align something and I go, oh yeah, that's it. That I can glue that, I know. But oftentimes I don't know for sure, so it has to be something that I think about a bit more. So and I should have glued, or should have put tape on this guy first, because this one I want to align up there and I didn't quite get it right. So first things first, get my photo conglomerate stuck down a little bit. All right, and I don't want it to impede the movement of that. Wow, right. want to be able to move the orange up. So, all right. Yep, so it's not quite lining up at the top, so I'll just shift the orange up slightly along this edge. There we go. You know, it's the designer in me that that worries, that I tend to worry and try and make sure alignments like that work. Probably too much, probably more so than I actually should, because that is kind of nice, but is it absolutely necessary? Might there be more important things? Of course, right? So, but I am who I am. All right, so what I did was, for the symbols for the YouTube thumbnail, I printed them out off my computer and then just taped them over top of a colored piece of paper and cut them through both. And I'm thinking, all right, so do I want to use this kind of tape layered thing, or do I just want to take the tape off or the layer off and use what's below? We'll see. This idea of like hearing or seeing or something like that is kind of fun. Using the Wi-Fi for that, like that's kind of cool, isn't it? Except I don't know, with any kind of visual, and symbols are no different. You can obstruct some of them, but you have to be careful. Like, does it lose its inherent what's good about it? And I initially thought that this would be awesome, and I love the eye coming through that and these emanating out this way, but it might be that this is covered up slightly too much. So right, I can't cover it over because it says things, or maybe I can. Maybe it's fine that I do. it's I know, I'm the artist, I can decide. So there are some options there. Let's see what else we've got. I've got the pink ribbon. So I could actually either just use the pink ribbon itself or the negatives of it. You know, all of these symbols carry a lot of weight, right? Because they're symbols to which we ascribe a lot of meaning and value and understanding. So, you know, putting the pink ribbon in here, I mean, like, immediately, viscerally changes the nature of the image. So, isn't that interesting, right? So, but there might be ways in which it might be incorporated that might be that still might be I was going to say interesting. I don't think there's any doubt of interesting because of the power, right? Faces are powerful, so are symbols. But as soon as you start doing things like this, you start having a narrative to it, which makes sense. And I have to decide whether that's something I want to think about or I want to play with. Or do I want to avoid it, right? So yeah, so what symbols do I actually have? I have a bunch of computer symbols. I did the yin yang, which kind of makes sense if we're talking about male female, so that might come into play. That was blue. Where's the blue piece? It's pretty funny that I don't know where the blue piece is. Oh well. What else? There's another one there that struck me as a good option. Peace, right? So the things that sort of suit playing with these images, these guys, maybe peace, maybe yin yang, the handprint, and then depending on what else we can see, right? So I'm not saying that the pink ribbon is going to go out entirely. I'm going to try it without it though. Wow, they're just so strong. It's interesting how much I'm noticing that. So part of what I want to do with some of these symbols is, and this is a good example, is maybe harness their recognition and their power, but change them a bit. So for instance, because this is lime green on yellow, it's hard to tell it's lime green. Sorry guys, this camera is not picking it up. Then it's quite subtle, but it's still recognizable, right? I could make it more so by putting the last piece in, but maybe I don't want to. And maybe I do. So that's something that I could think about. So that's a way in which I can make it a little bit subtler and a little less 10/10 strong. So that's interesting. Depower it somewhat, right? Whereas something like that is like, that's about as strong as it gets, right? So, so interesting. Yeah, sorry guys, I went quiet again while I was thinking. And so what I was thinking was collage, whatever you're working with, it's about finding different, like finding interesting meanings or juxtapositions that might just come about by chance and noticing them and then playing with that. So this idea that this type says being honored and celebrated and rightfully so, and then switching this Wi-Fi thing to be as if it's emanating from his mouth. Um, there's something interesting about that, especially given that she's over there. Um, and it's kind of like, then it becomes a one possible slant is that it's um, being honored and celebrated and rightfully so. Maybe it's him talking about her, right? And that's kind of cool. So I like that. And you could probably do the same kind of thing over here. And maybe then it's more like her talking about him, right? So, and that makes me wonder wonder whether okay, I peeled the white piece off the top of this, so I actually have two of these that I could play with. So maybe it could be about sort of, maybe there could be something here that might be more about mutual respect that I kind of like. Like it could be sort of like that. And this. Get it under there where I wanted it again. And maybe it should be, maybe this should change position somewhat so that it's more like that. And this one I'd have to cut so that, like, I don't like losing as much of her faces like that. But if I cut it like that, then it could work more. And that, I think there's something interesting there, right? And we often use like concentric circle arcs like this, like the Wi-Fi symbol, to also represent sound. And if I'm putting it on their mouths, it's speech, right? Or singing, or it's sound coming from their mouth. So, so there's something interesting there that is evolving from playing with this. So, yeah, I like that. And I don't know whether this is going to then factor in or whether it needs to. Maybe it still, it sort of works with the, so I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just going to look at it without it first. So think about that. And then the idea of like bringing the peace symbol in too, that's another thing that could work with this, but might be too much, right? Like this, yeah. Like in this context, I think the three biggest, the four biggest, most in alignment ideas or symbols are the Wi-Fi times two, the peace, and then maybe the yin yang. I know it hasn't got the hole cut out yet, but I'm just sort of placing it to think about it. So now, one thing I'm not so keen on is that how similar size they are. Like that was really good for this because I wanted these to all be more or less the same size, but it's not so good for here. So um, these two being the same size, fine, right? Um, but I kind of think this should be like, it'd be great to have like the peace symbol going way huge and maybe you don't even notice it, or the yin yang that you have to look to find it. Um, so um, yeah, the handprint is kind of, it's sort of a universal symbol of like humanity and identity, and like it's nothing is more like, that's the earliest form of art, right? Is the handprint on the cave wall, that at least that we're aware of, right? So there's something interesting about that too. Um, but it also has these contexts of like stop, right? So I'm not sure that that should be coming in here, but yeah, you know, the more I think about it and the more I talk about it, I kind of feel like this is all it needs to be. So now it's a case of, is this the best expression of what it is? Um, um, yeah, and I'm not sure. So what I think I'm going to do now is I'm just going to look at like, how should I cut these? And I'm not sure I'm going to cut this yet, but I want to just see what it looks like if I just need a straight edge to look at. Um, you know, should it be the same width as the bands in between? Um, is it actually still better that it's a box because that one's a box? Does it need to be a box? Does the box improve it or make it worse? Does just offsetting it more, is that enough? Um, I think it still reads as what I'm thinking. Um, and that's kind of interesting. Like, I guess I had been thinking originally that it should either be this orientation or this one, but you know, it's possible that something like this, using this edge as this 45 as a straight edge, might be interesting too, might still work. I like it when there are echoes of what else is going on. And this is organic forms with a bunch of angular edges. So I am thinking, I'm not positive, but I'm thinking that it's nice if they, I'm not convinced. Now I'm thinking about angles. So, um, and that's also interesting, isn't it? Like changing it, the narrative from one is speaking and the other is seeing, right? And I wonder if we change it to like that, right? Huh, that might be interesting right there, right? Almost echoing the rotation of that thing, and then um, maybe she could be speaking at an angle as well. Yep, so many options, which which is awesome, but it's also vexing, right? So I'm going to put this one aside and start something else. And I think my next one will be just using these shapes and just being much freer and more intuitive. And I guess I'll just have to think like, does this piece, do I want to save anything else from here for this? I kind of think that it should just be the Wi-Fi with them. So I think that's safe. All right, before I dig in on that, I've got about 20 minutes left. I'm going to see what you guys have been saying. All right, so Philippa says, I've been working on an embroidery project, some fabric applique, sort of cut and paste, but with fabric, wallpaper paste. Oh, Philippa, that sounds like so much fun. Philippa, do you know John Ming Mark at all? He's an artist who does a lot of work out of Nielsen Park Creative Center, but he has like a design slash engineer background. But he's been like trying, he's been doing printmaking. He's been doing, he's always had like a really nice, refined aesthetic, but been doing collage, and he's now working with like the quilters group there. And so he's doing like fabric oriented stuff, like between collage and machine stitching and free stitching and fabric. It's like and I don't know how old he is, but he's like he's basically 15 too, like in terms of how like adventurous and exciting his work is. So so yeah, I think of you too in the same in the same uh, like the endless curiosity and playfulness in the same sort of if one can think in the same breath, you know what I mean. So uh, Janice says, hi, coming in late. I've got a balance theme collage in the works. Awesome. I love that. Yeah. Um, Annie says, I like that you're exposing the guy's left eye with the lashes showing. Yeah, there's something fascinating about how strong his lashes were, and they were, so why not, right? Um, and he says, I vote for removing the box around the speech. Yeah, I think it's probably that's the case. And Kathleen seconds my opinion of John Ming Mark. Yeah, and I know Kathleen, you're no slouch either. So, but yeah, John and Philippa are who I want to be when I grow up, or if I grow up. All right. Actually, I don't need another pad. I just need the one I have. Bring it back. All right. So, unlike that one, which was very careful, I am just going to try to wing one here. Oh, sometimes sometimes you flip it over and think, oh, should I have stayed with that? Oh my God, that's kind of fun too. But no, I'm working with this. That's it. I'm sticking with that. So I don't know if I mentioned it on the previous Collage Jam, but I've been confirmed to be one of the artists at Fashion Art Toronto again this year. So I was there first a couple of years ago, and so I'm super excited about that. I'm going to have 4 of my really large collage blow-ups on display there. Um, and it's because I work so so much with fashion imagery. It's like the perfect place for it. And I also would love to start moving into um, like playing on a bigger stage in the fashion world, if possible. You know, who knows? I can dream, right? Um, and so I'm really looking forward to being able to have my work seen in that environment, and also um, I'm going to take a whole bunch of documentation photographs up around the collages, which I think will be a great way to show that potential. To wouldn't it be awesome to do like other fashion, like a fashion week somewhere else in the world, or have a design house as a client. So yeah, so fingers crossed. Like when I showed work the first time in 2023, which was awesome, it was much smaller. It was like poster size, whereas these are like billboard. Well, maybe not quite billboard, but they're like really tall, 10 feet tall. So I think like having a bunch of people at the event and then seeing like that um, behind them or whatever, I think will be will be a great shot for like, wow, that has impact, right? So um, yeah, so really looking forward to that. That's the weekend of the 13th to 16th. Um, so yeah, can't wait. So um, oh, I've forgotten what I was going to say. Um, oh, I think what I was going to say is if you have any interest in going to Fashion Art Toronto, it's like a really pretty busy, thronging kind of event. So, um, but it's actually relatively inexpensive if you just want to go. Like the thing that's more expensive is if you want to see the runway shows. But if you just want to see they have a whole bunch of art displays and some fashion displays, and even they have like one or two shows in what they call the fashion playground, which is like everything else other than the runway. And just to get into that, I think it's like $30 or so. It's around that price. The runway shows are more expensive. So, and the runway shows are awesome. But if you just wanted to like go check out my art, and they're going to have several other artists there as well, and just see the event, like the people watching there is second to none. Like, of course, there are a bunch of models and designers walking around, but everyone who attends is like dressed, like some of them are just dressed like really perfectly and conservatively, and some of them are like completely outlandish and everything in between. And it's really inclusive and fun. So if that sounds good, definitely check it out. It's fashionarttoronto.com, I think. So it would be awesome to see you there. So, but no pressure. But if it does sound appealing, I highly recommend it. And you don't, if you want to if you want to see stuff when it's less busy, go earlier. Like I think the doors usually open at 5 o'clock each night, for maybe even 4. Um, and earlier on, it's quiet, and the Thursday night is also relatively quiet because it's a work night. But Saturday is very thronging, and Friday and Sunday are as not as thronging as Saturday night, but they're busy. So and I happen to know, Philippa, that you you have quite excellent fashion sense. So um, you might you might find it interesting to go, and I know they'd find it interesting to see you there because you always bring your A game with what you wear. So so that would be cool. And what am I gonna wear? Like I love the idea of like coming up with like if I go 3 or 4 nights or 4 or 4 nights, coming up with something really cool to wear each time. But um, I'm not sure I have that energy. Like I'll figure out something. But um, I know some people like they plan it for months in advance, and I will not be that person. I will probably go to Value Village and see if I can find something interesting that could sort of spark some ideas. But um, I also have a bunch of stuff that I fall back on and just do minor tweaks to. And yeah, I'm I like the idea, but then the execution is more work than I'm sometimes up to. So, which I know is kind of, it sounds like a cop out, and maybe it is. All right. Well, it's quite obvious that her boob is lower down than I'm placing this on, but I don't know. I kind of think that's provocative and humorous. So I'm going to go with that. Kind of feel like a long line of these down one side or so, or maybe across the top might be interesting. Yeah, except I don't want to lose her eyes entirely. So maybe down the side. Let's see. Just the negatives of a bunch of things. Hmm. Now I'm wishing I hadn't done this because I kind of like this graphic pillar and okay. Sometimes the idea comes later. So what if, let's just put this, we're going to put you aside, honey. And what if I just find, let's see. All right, a circle is not really that interesting, but just testing this idea of like these columns, and I've got a cool column and a warm column of symbols or symbol negatives. Kind of loving this actually. That's kind of fun, isn't it? You got to admit that's kind of fun right there. So what if we did that and then we brought these a little more in alignment? Trying to keep these pieces in from moving around. All right. Kind of loose and not too. I think it'd be cool if they had that. Like this has a torn edge. I think it'd be cool if these had torn edges too. Maybe just along the bottoms of each one. And that's the sound of our time being up. So I'm going to go a couple minutes over. If you have to leave us, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to play for another 2 minutes and then I will sign off. Yeah, there's something interesting to me about this, and I like this sort of finishing with like these kooky glasses feeling of these circles. And I might cut in a bit more on the negative so we see just a little more of the background. But I think this has a nice feeling. And it came about from that previous piece that I was looking at, and I think there's another possible idea would to just be have a one column of it down and see another image here, but I just happened to grab this one where this woman has this very tall hat and the eyes are way at the bottom, which is kind of cool. So, and there's something about the jaunty squares that are imperfectly cut and have little gaps that feel sort of mid-century-ish, even though the colors aren't so much mid-century, and having a black and white as a foil to these like super hot colors. So I think this one is, and it's so interesting to me the way our thinking works and evolves. I spent the majority of the time on the first one, and I think it's got strength. I think I'll go back to that. And then I thought I just needed to do something super quick. So I started this one with no idea. And I thought, oh, hand, oh, like tape over the nipple, like, yeah, whatever. And I thought tears against the cuts of and the more I started going along with this is like, yeah, it's not really working, but it was zero premeditation, right? And so when I put those in a row, I thought, yeah, that's cool. I think it needs a different context, and this is a good one for it. So, perfect case of how creativity on one can beget creativity on another, and how like not everything has to work and not everything has to be belabored. Sometimes belabored is awesome, and sometimes very quick and intuitive is good. But I think the quick and intuitive that came here required me to have spent some time playing and trying and working with some other things because I sort of got warmed up. So yeah, so that's interesting, right? I think sometimes you guys will probably have been like in a life drawing session and you've been doing some long poses and then it's like, okay, well, the session ends in like 5 minutes. Okay, well, let's just do a couple of quick sketches, and you're already really warmed up and you're maybe sick of doing the long ones. So you dash something off, and that's when it happens really nicely. So all right, so just going to sign off and look at your last few comments, and let's go from there. So, go, get the right glasses on so I can read your comments. And so Annie says, must go. Pup is crossing his legs. So Annie's probably gone already, but thank you so much, Annie, for joining us. That was awesome. And yeah, I'll pass along hi to Kim. Kim is in South Korea at the moment, having the time of her life, which is awesome. Philippa says, it sounds like something I would absolutely love. Where is it held? We would have to take the GO train. So yeah, if you took the GO train, then maybe a cab to the event. So the event is at a place called T3 Bayside, which it's on Queens Quay to the east. So a cab ride from Union would probably take you like half an hour. No, probably. It depends what night, right? Like Saturday night would be different than Thursday night. But check out fashionarttoronto.com and that will have all the details. But it's like a new building, and very swish. So the ground floor has like the coat check, and I think some of my pieces of art will be there. And then you take an elevator. They do it on like the eighth or 10th floor, I forget which. And when you get off the elevator up there, it's just like that's the event. So it's kind of like the ground floor is like the prelude, and then the floor that they do it on is like where it happens. So yeah, no, it's highly recommended if you can. Um, so yeah, but I think a cab is probably the best way. There is parking around it, but if you're taking the GO train, um, a cab is probably the easiest thing, or an Uber or something. Um, so yeah, I would love to see you there. So if you do decide to go, email me and let me know which day you're going to be there. Um, I might not go Friday night. Kim gets back from Korea that morning, so we might just want to catch up. Um, but I'm planning on going every other night, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Kim is going to try and come Sunday. And I may also go Friday night. Like if Kim is just like she needs to sleep because she's at some kind of crazy um, time, jet lagged, then I might be there all night. So it'd be lovely to see you there. Um, so guys, and that goes for the rest of you too, right? If you want to come, I'd be over the moon to see you there. Um, all right. So, oh wow. So Fashion Art Toronto is next week. I'm yeah, I have to get used to that idea. So um our next our next virtual collage jam is on the 17th of November, and it is on the subject of rave. And I will have been at Fashion Art Toronto, which has a kind of a bit of a rave feeling. So that'll have me all good and stoked if I'm not too exhausted by Monday. So I will see you either at Fashion Art Toronto or at back here on November 17th at 2 p.m. to Collage on Rave. So thanks for joining me, guys, and I will see you the next time around. Please post anything you've done to our Virtual Collage Jam group on Facebook. It's called Virtual Collage Jam Group, I think. And yeah, would love to see what you're cooking up. Okay, see you later. Take care. Bye, Kathleen.